They called is candidly and openly calling for a nationwide ban on all abortions with no exceptions for rape or incest. And if I've got that wrong, I would invite Ms. Foster to correct me. Do I have it wrong, yes or no?
If we added rape and incest exceptions, would you vote for it?
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? This is the live Friday night show that we have, and we have Miss Kyra Bowlby on with us. I'm going to bring her on right now. And just so you guys know, we are actually streaming right now on Rumble as well as YouTube. I'm actually in Facebook jail, so we're not on Facebook right now. I still have an hour and some change to go before I get deblocked on Facebook. So we're just on Rumble and YouTube. Kyra, how are you doing today? What do you think about us being on Rumble right now?
I am great, and it's awesome to be on a great free speech platform. So it's great to be on Rumble too. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, I think that if it gets too heated, we can just kick the YouTube stream and just go for broke on Rumble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a very serious topic. So we're talking about Roe versus Wade. So I'm going to just jump right in here. We have a lot of things that are going on right now. And I think the main thing about this whole situation is the whole Dobbs case, Dobbs versus Jackson. So Kyra, you want to just talk about that? Or you want me to jump in on that? Or you want me to kind of give the overall, or do you want to just let us know what you think about that?
I mean, anytime now, like, we're going to figure out what's going on with Dobbs, which is exciting in my opinion. I hope that the right thing happens. It was really cool because my favorite Supreme Court justice is Clarence Thomas, and I actually have his poster on my wall, which is really cool.
No way.
And yeah, do you want to see it?
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna get to our Kyra's room here. Oh, there you go. Yep.
Yeah. Can you see it?
He's awesome. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. He's great.
Yeah, I have Clarence. I took off Amy Coney Barrett's because I'm not impressed with her. And then I have Alito, Kavanaugh, and Scalia. So
yeah, Scalia, man, that was a big loss.
It was.
Man,
it was.
So huge loss. It's funny. I didn't even like Clarence Thomas. I was one of those Democrats at the time who called him a token. But the funny thing is, he's the one man standing between us and tyranny.
Yeah, and I guess it was really cool because, like, I am really into, like, reading the cases and, like, reading his opinions. And a lot of people probably know this, but a lot of leftists were at the Supreme Court and outside of justices' houses protesting Roe v. Wade, and Justice Thomas actually said that no one is going to intimidate them into making an opinion. Yes. Which I thought was super cool. So I love Clarence Thomas. Also, if you guys have not watched his really, really good documentary on The Daily Wire, you absolutely should. That was so good.
Is it the one that came out in the theaters, or is it a different one?
I don't remember.
It's called a man of his own words, or a man came out a couple years ago. Well, I'll tell you, he had one that was amazing. He talked about his whole life story, him growing up and being a delinquent, getting kicked out of the house. That one, him actually being in a riot. I almost said BLM, but it was actually a riot. I think a Watts riot, something like that. And then his dad said, "You got to go." So anyway, I can get on Clarence Thomas. We should do a whole show on him. And you know what, Kyra, we never did our thing on Jordan Peterson. I'm really jumping all over the place here, but I kind of want to get back to do one on Clarence Thomas. That'd be awesome, and do one on Jordan Peterson eventually. But Clarence Thomas is absolutely the best one we have right now. And I think Alito's done a fairly decent job.
Yeah, didn't he teach himself how to read?
I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt that at all. No.
I know that he was illiterate for a very long time in school, and he was like almost failing, and like a lot of people are actually still shocked, like his family's still shocked that he's even on the Supreme Court because he struggled so much in school. So I don't know, man, his story's pretty amazing. I mean, he grew up in the segregated South, dealt with a lot of crap, and he's honestly killing it. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, so let me jump in here. So we got some people commenting. So, I'm not sure if we have, well, anyway, I'm not going to read some of these comments. We got some trolls coming on, but the point is that if you want to comment in there, I'll check it out. If I have a chance to screen it first before I put it on the screen, I will. If not, just let us know that you don't want to see it on the screen, and I'll keep it private. But let's just jump right in here. So the Dobbs case essentially was a Mississippi case, I believe, right? I think I had it up on the screen here, and it was just to give us some background here. I have it highlighted. So this is a Mississippi case, 15 weeks of pregnancy, and this could allow for states to enforce abortion restrictions before viability for the first time since Roe versus Wade decision. This came out in 2021 of last year. And so a lot has happened. And recently, it leaked, quote unquote, leaked of the decision. And it looks like it's going to be actually overturned back to the states. So what's your thoughts on the reaction, the crazy, insane reaction that we've seen on the left?
I've watched a lot of the protests. I have a reel on my Instagram that you can go look at, and it's basically from like a protest where someone asked this lady about abortion, and she said, "Oh, it's the woman's choice. She has the right to choose." And basically, she also said, she was like, do I have a right to kill my 2-year-old? And the woman was like I said, it's the woman's choice. And it was crazy. I mean, these women, if you're a woman and you support abortion, I'm just gonna say right now, you're literally like demonic. You're demonic. You're satanic. I don't get it. I don't get how you can support abortion. And there are women that I've talked to, because I went to a march counter protesting, and a bunch of women that I talked to, this was virtually, by the way. I went to like a virtual march, which was really weird, but like, and a bunch of the women there, they were telling me, they're like, oh, well, I think a woman should have the right to abort her child 9 months up into her pregnancy. So like she can abort her baby up until like 9 months in the 3rd trimester. And I was like, I'm sorry, but like, how can you genuinely support that? This was like virtually, by the way. This was like at a march, and like my friend was like she FaceTimed me and was like, do you want to talk to people? Because I wanted to go and talk to people, but I didn't know how, because it was like during the day and it was rough, and I was trying to figure out how to get to the march and stuff. So my friend actually went virtually and FaceTimed me, so I got to talk to a lot of pro-choicers. And a lot of the women there told me specifically, they said, well, it's the woman's choice to have an abortion. It's the woman's right to choose. She can choose what she wants to do with her body. And then there was this other march that I remember, and there were a bunch of women, like there was a woman dressed up as like, what was it? She was dressed up as like Abraham Lincoln, and she basically was like dressed up as a misogynist, and it was very interesting.
Why Lincoln?
So I don't know, like they think that all the presidents are like misogynists, and they think that as a woman their rights are up for grab in America, which I don't agree with, because if you really felt that way, if you honestly believed that your rights as a woman are up for grabs in America, I don't get it personally. They like dressed up as a bunch of the presidents because they think the presidents are a bunch of misogynistic slave owners. And then like they dressed up as like Abraham Lincoln. Someone else dressed up as George Washington. Just you see a lot of crazy stuff at these protests. And also, like, I have friends who, because I'm very involved with the pro-life movement, so I actually had friends who were at protests at the Supreme Court. I also know some lawyers that are at the Supreme Court level, and I knew people that were protesting, and I asked them, I was like, "What's the ratio to like pro-life protesters and pro-choice protesters?" And they actually specifically said that there were only a few people protesting at the Supreme Court compared to the amount of pro-lifers that were there. So it was pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody, just so you guys know, I appreciate the comment here, Pedro, on this. You take a hard stance on this, and I take the hard stance too. I just take a hard stance on abortion. I think it's murder. But so I appreciate your comment there. I really do. But what you have on the screen here, guys, is the abortion counter. This is horrifying. This is absolutely horrifying. And you watch this and it's like, come on, seriously. And I actually have another thing here. I got a ton of clips here, a lot of audio, a lot of videos, and a bunch of clips from you too, Kyra. You want to talk about your video that you did recently for Red Liberty Media? That was a really good video. Very, very good video.
Thank you. I debunked a bunch of pro-choice arguments. So my next video is going to be answering pro-choice questions from a pro-life perspective. So that's going to be on the Red Liberty Media YouTube channel. That's my next video that I'm going to film. And then I'm also going to basically do the same thing on my regular YouTube channel, because I had a video on my YouTube channel talking about whether we should overturn Roe v. Wade or not. And I don't know if you saw that, but yeah. Yeah, so I have a video out on my YouTube channel about overturning Roe and what that would mean and my opinion on it, so you can go and watch that.
I wish I'd known that before I prepped this thing. I would have added it too here. I want to show this quick clip here, because it says here, wrong one. It basically says, by the time you read this, 4 or 5 kids would have been killed. Like, how depressing can you get, right? It kind of goes with that counter I was just saying about, that we've just gone overboard. And I actually put this on Facebook. I'm in Facebook jail right now, so I can't look at it now. But I did this, like, chopping up babies is bad. We have lost our freaking minds. I mean, the brass tacks is we're killing babies. We're destroying them. We're mutilating them. And they're feeling pain. And it's like, have we lost our minds in this country, Kyra?
Yeah, we have. There was also a woman who, because I think you and I have we might have different views on abortion in cases of like rape or incest. I don't know what your views are on that. But basically there's a video from Students for Life, and it's a lady who had 2 abortions and who had twins conceived in rape. And it was very interesting because she actually aborted. She could hear them screaming inside of her belly.
No, my gosh, that's horrible. Oh, wow. Yeah. I take a hard stance on abortion for the most part. I don't even think rape should be a case. But if that happens, I mean, I get it. That's such a small minority, but I still take a stance that kill the rapist, not the baby. The only case I say where it's where I would say do it is if my wife's life's at stake, because to me that's a self-defense kind of thing, right? But it's her choice if she wants to sacrifice herself for a child too. So I would say that would be justifiable, because it's self-defense in some ways. But those cases are so slim. It's like 1% and 0.5% for those cases, and everything else is elective.
Everything else is out of convenience. Like, actually, like, I think it's like 95.6% or something. It's a really high rating of the amount of people that get abortions because of like convenience. So when I was in a sorority, I didn't share this in our video that we made, but there was actually a girl who hooked up with a guy, and she made a joke in one of our meetings saying that that if she gets pregnant, she'll just go out and get an abortion. And she was laughing about it, thought it was really funny. And she was just like, oh, well, I hooked up with this guy. We'll see what happens. I might just, go to Planned Parenthood if I do get pregnant. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, that's demonic. She was literally laughing about getting an abortion. There are also women on TikTok who went to Planned Parenthood, and they were like bragging about getting their abortions. And then there was a girl who posted screenshots from her boyfriend congratulating her on getting an abortion, and she's in high school.
Yeah, I don't get.
It's like, our entire country has just lost our freaking minds that we think that murder is empowering, or that murder is healthcare. Like, I genuinely don't get it. And it's like there are actually people who are still regretting the abortion after they get it. And it's just like the amount of times that I've talked to a lot of women, even this week alone, who had their children after they were raped. And then I actually talked to a woman on Instagram who was conceived in rape, and it was a really hard conversation, but
Yeah.
it's like 100% of the time people make excuses for rape and incest when it's such a small percentage. And it's like, if you're going to, why do you have to punish the baby and murder the baby because of the sin of the father or the way that the baby was conceived? Like, why we should give more of a punishment for prison for the rapist than the baby. I don't get why we have to murder an innocent life because of the father. Rape is terrible, but at the same time, it's like, why are we punishing the baby and the rapist when it's the rapist who should get who should get fully consequenced to the full extent of the law? It's like, I don't get it in that case, if that makes sense.
100%. And in fact, we'll get a little bit later. I have some Apologia Ministries video on the street at LSU University. They talk about that. I didn't get into the rape aspect of it. I didn't know how that was a little bit too divisive, but I think we're on the same page. You and I both. I think everyone on this chat are on the same page. So, but it's still good. It's a moral issue that ultimately we have to talk about. And so what I've done here, guys, is I've done this before, where I actually do like a game show for like Family Feud, but I'll have the top 8 responses. In this case, top 8 responses for why abortion sucks. All right. And so we'll go through these as this program goes on, and we'll talk about it. And I'll throw stuff up on the screen as is applicable. And hopefully, Kyra, I'll get some of your clips up here too as they relate. So the first one is number 8. Let's check out this clip real quick. I mean, hide that. I gotta get rid of this guy here, because if I don't do that, you will see the comment. I don't want you to see that. So let's get rid of that guy. All right. I'm gonna go back to here and here. Families. So, and I have a little clip here that says that anytime a family member dies, the rest of the family is affected. And this is true of abortion. A real living irreplaceable child has been killed, and the parents and siblings are damaged. Abortion damages relationships, and many women who abort just to convince their guy to stay with them and find that they have left them alone anyway, shortly after the abortion. Abortion is never the answer to a successful and loving relationship. And by the way, I have all these links in the description below if you guys check this out. So we think about number 8, it's damaging to relationships and families. You kind of talked about it. Yeah.
I mean, when you get an abortion, it's damaging to everyone. Like, I have had conversations with women who've gotten abortions, and I think one thing that the pro-life movement, one thing that we need to improve upon as pro-lifers is we need to stop shaming women for having abortions, and we need to instead sympathize with them and be there for them and encourage them. And when I was talking to her about her experience, and it was awful, and it made me really sad, but she was really shocked at how supportive I was of her. And she told me, she's like, wow, like, you don't think I'm a murderer? And I'm like, I mean, I don't think you're a murderer, but I don't think you made the right decision. And she told me that she was actually getting an abortion for her is something that she will regret for the rest of her life. And this is something that a lot of women deal with. I mean, if a woman does get an abortion, which I would never consider because I'm 100% pro-life all the way, a lot of women are traumatized after they get their abortions. They have depression, they have to go to therapy, and it also affects families. Yeah. I mean, I know, like, there are fathers who cry at pro-life protests, at pro-life marches, because their daughter got an abortion, someone in their family got an abortion. Like, it's something that affects everyone, not just the woman who goes out and gets the abortion, but the entire family. So yeah.
Yeah. There's a scene. There's 3 movies I recommend people watch. One is Gosnell, another one is Roe versus Wade, another one is Unplanned. And Unplanned it's a scene in there when they're begging this woman not to get an abortion. It's heart wrenching as she goes into the clinic, and reliving that, watching it in the theater, is just something I don't want to do, because it is a real thing that happens. And one thing they did in that show, is a Christian-based show, was that the people who were looking out for these women were very compassionate. And that's one thing the main character didn't understand, how compassionate these Christians were with her. And you mentioned that just now, that she was shocked that you showed her grace and mercy. And I think that's one thing we need to do, show these women, because there is a lot of inner guilt there, and we're kind of doing them a disservice. But I think people who are doing it blatantly, I think maybe we could treat them a little differently. But I think I just hate the whole institution of abortion all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. And I think it's also really interesting because you have conversations with women who have had abortions. When I was on my other campus before I actually transferred, I was tabling for Students for Life on campus, and a girl actually came up to us and she was considering getting an abortion. And we actually, like, one of my proudest moments as a pro-lifer was talking this woman out of getting an abortion. Like, that's like
Oh, wow.
yeah, like that's like the proudest thing that I've ever done, in my opinion. Like, if people ever ask me, like, what's your biggest accomplishment, it would probably be getting a woman to choose life instead of death. And she was actually considering getting an abortion. And I remember, because like we would have to sign up for certain times to come on campus and table and all this stuff. And I'm so glad I picked that day to table, because it was such a great conversation that we had. So yeah, that's like probably one of my proudest moments ever. And it was a really cool conversation. And if you ever get the chance, if you're a college student, go table for a pro-life organization, because you will have like life-changing conversations. It's the best.
There's a Planned Parenthood near my house, and for many months, my wife would go every Friday and pray, and sometimes it'd be just her by herself, and other times it'd be 2 or 3 people there. And then, would you believe this? And no one knew this, about after 4 months of doing it, they opened up a Christian-based family planning center or family crisis center right across the street from that facility. So
Wow.
almost like answer the prayer, because they were praying for the place to shut down, but that hasn't happened yet. But that place was there across the street, and I think that's so great that people get the option. Now, let me ask you a question, Kyra, because I never understood this. Why is it people on the left who are pro-abortion, I guess, or pro-death, pro-murder, why are they against ultrasounds? Why are they against alternative options like adoption? And even what if they're, if it's truly pro-choice, why is it that they're against the choice of even an ultrasound and that sort of thing?
I think it's because they don't consider the baby to be a life. They think it's like a clump of cells, a parasite. When I was talking to students on campus, while I was tabling and doing stuff for the pro-life movement on my campus, a lot of people would use the terms parasite. They would also use the term, what was it? They would use the term parasite, clump of cells, and non-human, because according to them, the baby's still inside the mother's uterus, therefore it's still developing, and they just don't consider it a life. Which, in that case, like, if that's really what you believe in, then shouldn't we get rid of every human being shouldn't we get rid of or eliminate people who have Down syndrome?
Right.
Because they have to depend on a parent or someone to take care of them. So I don't really understand that argument. And then it's like, I don't really know about ultrasounds, but they just don't consider the baby inside of the mother's uterus to be considered a life, because it's still developing and all this stuff. And it's like, you're also, when you're like a baby outside of the womb, you're growing, you're getting nutrients, you're developing. So I think that's just a flawed argument, because they want to use the emotional argument that a baby is just a clump of cells or a parasite. Doesn't matter. According to them, I'm not saying this as my views, But it's just something that I've noticed. They don't consider the baby a life, which I think is just really sad and depressing. And I don't agree with that at all because it's a life. It's a different set of DNA that is inside the woman's uterus, and it should be protected.
You mentioned uterus. I'm going to pull up two clips here. One clip of you, Kyra, that you talked about in your video. By the way, check this video out. It's on Red Liberty Media. Also go over to Kyra's site as well, her YouTube channel, and check out her new video that I hadn't seen yet. I'm sure it's awesome. But I'm going to play this clip for you. And then after that, I'm going to play a clip from Apologia Ministries. They're actually on the campus of LSU. And there's a question about what is life. And I think it's really interesting. The guy, Jeff Durbin, is the pastor there. He's amazing. But here's the first clip from Kyra. It's real short. Here we go.
Argument is that pro-lifers only care about a baby inside the uterus, not outside of it.
Yeah, exactly. And here's this clip from Apologia.
You have a library here, okay? And all biological textbooks, you can check this out, you can leave right from here and find it out. All biological textbooks will argue and agree today, without question, is not disputed, that all human life begins at the moment of conception, the very moment of conception. You and, what's your name?
My name's Annie.
Annie, I'm Jeff. I'm Jeff. It's not a lie, go look it up. The moment of conception, all human life is at the moment of conception. So you, Annie, were the you are today as a human at that very moment. The only difference was a difference of size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependence. Biologically speaking, you were the you are now at that moment of conception. That's indisputable today.
Thoughts on that? I love Jeff. He is amazing. Oh my gosh. What's your thoughts on those two clips? One that you did.
Did you like my pro-choice
I love.
expression?
Yeah, it was funny because I hope people didn't understand that that's not how you talk. You were mimicking the people on the left. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. I like him. I watched that video. I think I actually have seen that video. I've seen clips of it on like Instagram or something. I don't know, but I've seen it somewhere. So
Yeah.
it was pretty good. He seems like is he like a pastor?
He's a pastor. He's really good on apologetics. I mean, he really can like hammer home just the whole theological of like, you know, he's just amazing, right? But his big thing is abortion, you know, getting rid of it, ending it. And but he's pretty amazing guy. He's my friend on Facebook. I don't know how we became friends, but I guess whatever. But so cool. So I'm going to jump to the next one here on the Family Feud this is number 7. Why abortion or Roe versus Wade sucks. Here we go. It can harm women. Real life stories demonstrate again and again that abortion harms women. Harm comes in a variety of forms: mental, emotional, relational, and physical. And in some cases, women's lives are lost through abortion, and they also experience the loss of their fertility or the increase in miscarriages after an abortion. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it can harm women. There have actually been women who have gotten abortions where they have actually had scarring inside of their uterus from the abortion, so they can no longer conceive or try and have another baby.
Wow, that's so sad. I'm gonna jump right into the next one because this hits right into what Roe versus Wade is, and I think this is a good one because we're gonna spend some time on this one because the whole thing of Roe versus Wade is a joke. Seriously, I can't believe it's not a law in this country. Roe versus Wade is full of lies, and actually, I have to jump right into here, and it's actually a couple screenshots that I pulled together. And it's a little wonky, but I think people need to know this. Did you watch the movie called Roe versus Wade? It came out a couple years ago.
No, I haven't seen it. Is it good?
It's amazing. It goes through the story of this thing. And I'll give a basic demo of it or a summary. This guy here was the main guy from Roe versus Wade. He was a doctor who aborted his own child. This is his girlfriend who was pregnant. He aborted his own. I get him off the screen here real quick while I'm talking to you. He aborted his own child, and then after doing so, he felt that it was not right for a woman to have to go through that illegal, in a backroom alley, so to speak. So he got with a bunch of organizations and led the charge for getting this whole thing done and propping up this whole thing with Norma and the Roe v. Wade case, which is a total fallacy. But in here, he says here, if I can read that, says that basically they lied about the women that were killed in back alleys. He admitted this. He became a pro-life person after the fact. He passed away, but he actually was even the narrator for the film The Silent Scream, which is a documentary that shows an abortion up close. And it talks about how he confessed all of this and that they even stooped to levels of falsifying data that they knew was wrong, but it made for a good narrative. And that's just disgusting. And then we jump right into Miss Norma here. Miss Norma McCorvey, she became a pro-lifer. This is the person who Roe versus Wade was based off of. And she was not raped. She kept the baby. The whole thing was a lie. You can read it here for yourself. I'm not going to go through all this, but the whole thing is a total fallacy, and it's built on a stack of lies. And that's what that clip was talking about in terms of that number 7 on this list. Had you heard any of the story behind Roe versus Wade and how it actually got implemented?
I keep hearing different stories, which is why I kind of had to do my own research on Roe. So it's like I don't really know what to believe when it comes to Roe. So yeah.
Yeah, and some people were criticizing the movie because they felt that it sensationalized the case, but these were people that actually were there, firsthand witnesses, right? But I just think the whole thing, it was the ultimate case of it was the distress of the woman, and that was to give them the ability to abort the child, but it was an emotional distress, and it got expanded upon into all cases of everything. And that's how that slippery slope came to pass. It was never intended for abortion on demand. And so that's one of the things too. Once you open that door a little bit, they just kick that thing in.
Yeah.
So Epstein Ghost is on. He just contributed $10. Great show, guys. USS. Thanks for bringing us awesome content. You're welcome. Epstein's Ghost is awesome. And Jerry is on as well. Let's get to Pedro. Also, don't habitate until marriage. Yeah, and actually, Kyra, you mentioned it. Didn't we talk about this real quickly about, you mentioned this in one of your videos, I believe, about don't have sex, right?
Yeah, so I came from more of a biblical perspective, because if you read the Bible, it says that, sex was created for marriage, whether we like it or not. It was created for marriage between one man and one woman. So it was created specifically for that purpose. And so basically, our society, we love to hype up hookup culture, that you can go around, hook up with whoever you want, and it's fine, or it's even empowering, according to some women. And one thing that I noticed is when it comes to hookup culture, everyone's like, oh, I'm just going to go around. They say this a lot, and especially on college campuses, that they're just going to go around, they're going to hook up with whoever they want. And then sometimes they get pregnant. And then it's like, what are you going to do? You're a college student. You're struggling to even pay for canned food, much less if you get pregnant, how are you going to do school and have a baby? So it's like, sex was created for marriage specifically, and it's not something that you should participate in until you are married. The Bible actually tells us this as well, that is what it was intended for. And it's also intended for reproduction as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But now it's just saying a woman is a woman and a man is a man. It's controversial nowadays. I think all that is all part of this whole deception thing to get us to get off the subject of what you just said. Jerry mentions here, she said, thankfully she was able to adopt, talking about a friend of hers, I guess. She says, I met another woman with that same problem. I tried to warn her. She said I was silly. Thankfully, she was able to adopt. A woman chose not to make the same poor choice. And I kept this up on the screen because Jerry just also gave us $9.99 donation here. Thank you so much, Jerry. Jerry's really been really very faithful. I mean, she's been really supportive, me on Facebook particularly, and even on YouTube, actually, for that matter. I really appreciate everyone that takes your time to read our comment and content and give feedback, because Kyra, I know you know this. It's a lonely world sometimes out there when you're always researching stuff that's negative. You always hear stuff, and it's overwhelming. And Marty mentioned it, how it's just a war every single day as a conservative, and it beats you down. And so just to have people say thank you or whatever, to me, makes it worth the effort. I wouldn't be doing this 3 years later if I hadn't had people come and say, hey, thank you for what you're doing, because otherwise I would have given up 2.5 years ago. But let me share a quick story. And Kyra, if you want to share a personal story as well, we talked off camera, but I am adopted. I was born on January 22nd and the same date of Roe versus Wade. So for me, as a Black man, I don't use that term very much on this channel, but it's obvious. And the reason why I say that is because one of these things is going to do with civil rights and the disproportion of Black people that are being killed in the womb. That's a whole nother thing. But as a Black man, adopted, I could have been gone, right? and born on January 22nd. So to me, it's always on my mind. So what are your thoughts, Kyra, on that and what I just said about anything I just said there?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you're here. And second of all, my mother actually was given the option to abort me. I have a video about why I'm pro-life, so full story's on there and you can look it up on my channel. But basically my mother, so I was known to have a birth defect known as trisomy 18, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's also known as Edwards syndrome. So it's basically when you're born without half a brain, half a heart, and you're not fully developed. So there's not a lot of room of life outside of the womb. A lot of the times, babies who are diagnosed with this die after they are born.
Wow.
Or they die a few years after they're born or a few weeks. So they gave my mother the option to have an abortion. And my mother actually sat in an operating room with just like many parents around her, and they were crying and freaking out. And she actually went into a room with my father, and they brought out a binder with, it was like, at least it was 1,000 pages of all these different birth defects that babies can have. And they showed them pretty graphic pictures of what I would have looked like if I came out. Sometimes these babies are actually, they come out with like a finger missing or an arm missing. So it was really interesting to kind of like to hear about that. I heard about this like a while after, when I was old enough to hear about it, but I'm really grateful that my mom chose life, because she thought that, she was just like, I'm not going to kill my daughter. Like, even if she was going to die outside of the womb, then we would have made her as comfortable as possible. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that story. I mean, your mother, both your parents, I know, I spoke to your dad on Facebook, are very wonderful people. And obviously, the woman that they raised right here in front of me is just, amazing. I think what you do is fantastic. I mean, because we are also part of Red Liberty Media, so I see you on that side of it too. And I see you on Instagram going live every other night. So you're just a cool person to be around. I'm glad I got to know you. Glad I got to know you.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you're here too, by the way. So,
Thank you.
Okay, so let's just jump over here. I'm going to keep going here. I think we're on number 5, I guess. If I can find it. I got a bunch of stuff here queued up. Let me see. Yeah, I guess it's number 5, I think. Yeah, so let's do this guy. Violate civil rights. So let me do the other one first. Right? How, if you're a baby, you didn't choose to be here. And next thing you know, based on what you just told me, those twins, she could hear the screams in the womb. How horrific is that?
Yeah, I mean, so she had the twins, but she's had 2 other abortions before she had her twins.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So her twins were basically conceived in rape. And it's like, it's on the Students for Life Facebook page. So you can go watch the video. It's pretty amazing. But she had 2 other abortions, I think, before she had her twins, and she could hear screaming inside of the womb of the baby being killed. And also, it's like, for me personally, one of the main reasons why I am pro-life is because I believe that every life is valuable and every life has meaning. And I guess like a way that I would describe it is you don't know the value that your baby is going to bring into the world. I mean, all of those babies that we've lost since Roe v. Wade was put into law. I mean, we've lost generations of that could have been amazing presidents, amazing senators, amazing congressmen, or amazing engineers, inventors, singers, artists, musicians. You know, this is an entire generation that could have just changed the world, and they're murdered. And it's really sad.
Yep, and there's a counter right there. I just saw a story of Stephen Curry, Stephen Golden State guy. He's a Hall of Famer, soon to be when he retires.
Yeah, his mother almost aborted him, right?
Yeah, that crazy. And funny thing about it is that he's actually a big BLM leftist, sounds like. But his mom, I guess she's writing a book and told the story. And he's probably one of the greatest shooters the NBA has ever seen. And he wouldn't have been here. And there's tons of stories like that. Tons of stories of people like that. So, you just don't know. You just don't know. So since I brought him up, let me just bring up, because I do want to, let me get rid of this guy here. I need a producer. Anybody want to be a producer on these shows? I want to talk about this guy because this is one that's near and dear to my heart. So, and basically what they say here in this particular, it says civil rights are violated when people are deprived of their basic rights in a discriminatory fashion. Unborn children are deprived of life, the most basic right of all, simply based on their location, their mother's womb, and their developmental status. This is discriminatory, inhumane, and cruel. Right here, civil rights, I think about Black people, and I think about this particular stat right here, Kyra. This is going to shock you. Right here, that abortion accounts for 61% of Black deaths in America. I mean, that right there is staggering.
Yeah, and Margaret Sanger too. She actually spoke at KKK Klan rallies, and she actually talked about how abortion was, it was basically a way to just get rid of the Black community. I mean, she saw Black people as weeds, right? So basically, and also like Hillary Clinton actually got the Margaret Sanger Award, and she actually sees Margaret Sanger as a huge inspiration to her for preserving women's rights, even though it's not women's rights when you're murdering a child, because they don't get to choose whether they live or die. And also Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood actually tried to cover up the racist past of Planned Parenthood by trying to get rid of Margaret Sanger statues. So
yeah, it was actually called the Negro Project. And a guy that I met, I spent 8 hours with this guy. His name is Jesse Jackson. He went to the school I went to, and for homecoming, I got a chance to spend some time with him for a commemoration of a civil rights museum. But at one point, he was really against abortion. And he in Jet Magazine in 73 in March, he got with Billy Graham's wife to ban abortion. I mean, he's hardcore, but of course, in 84, he ran for president and then started shucking and jiving and doing the step and fetch it and getting that money. And he became a pro-choice, kind of person. And to me, that's just disgusting. And they want to call Black conservatives sellouts. That is the epitome of a sellout. I almost cussed there. So, oh, wow. I just can't stand that hypocrisy there. It's really, really infuriating. And Margaret Sanger, I'm glad you mentioned her because I didn't have anything prepped for her at all. But there is a website called blackgenocide.com. If you want to go out there and check that out, I got a bunch of links on this as well. And there's a movie as well called Maafa 21. And that's a 2.5 hour movie dealing with the whole thing with Jesse Jackson and just the genocide of what's going on. And if you look at this thing here, you'll see since 73, 19 million Black babies, and I don't want to just say Black babies, but babies. All lives are precious. I don't care what color you are, but I'm talking about the proportion of this is what's ridiculous. That's nearly a third of what's going on overall since 73. It's absolutely out of control. And I don't understand how the Democrats can continually get away with this every single year and then blame us, the conservatives, as somehow we're the monsters. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next one before I really get insanely mad. So this is the next one. Let's go to the next one. So we kind of talked about this before, and someone mentioned here as well. Let's talk about this because someone talked about this because the next one's going to be very religious. The number one is basically a religious position. But someone had a point here. They said that's morally wrong, but as Christians, we shouldn't bring our religion into this. What are your thoughts on that? 'Cause I got a couple of video clips on here that deal with that, but I want to know your opinion on that. I think I know your opinion, but what's your thoughts on that assessment? Morally wrong, but we shouldn't be bringing it in terms of religion as being the reason why we shouldn't do it.
I think our society needs more religion because we are a society that's steering away from God instead of, like, our society is literally falling because of how just atheist our society is. And the pro-choice side, they are like the satanic temple supports abortion. And I think as Christians, it is our responsibility to stand up for life, uplift life, and try and impact people around us. So I don't really agree with that. I think that, religion is something that's incredibly important. And it just, like, I don't really understand why that's kind of an argument. I mean, it's basically how you see the world. I see the world as wanting to preserve innocent human life and wanting to protect people. And that's also the beliefs of Christianity. And either way, like, people in Congress and the Senate all the time, they talk about religion when they're voting on bills or arguing about bills. So yeah, I think it's important for us to talk about religion. And I wish we talked about religion a little more in our society, especially since, anti-Christian hatred is just skyrocketing right now, where people are shaming Christianity and all this stuff. So I don't really agree with that. I think we need to bring religion more into society.
Yeah, we didn't plan this, but I got a clip just for what you just said there. I'm gonna bring this clip up right here. It's about 30 seconds long. Check this out.
So what's amazing is the mockery. You're mocking somebody for you think something is true and they don't believe it, so you're mocking them. And yet you believe that your ancestors, you believe were bacteria. Science depends upon the uniformity in nature and induction. So you tell me, as someone who believes that your ancestors were fish and that you live in a godless, unguided universe, give me a justification that satisfies the preconditions of intelligibility. You don't have an answer, young lady. You don't have an answer.
Wow, I mean, yeah, that's just basically what you just said there. I mean, that's what you just said. So, what else can we talk about here? I got a bunch of stuff I can queue up, but so let's just go to the last one, number one. And we kind of already hinted on it, so we can deal with this. But the last of top 10 lists, and some were non-religious reasons why you should go after, why abortion isn't right, and so forth. But this was the one I think, to me, was the most personal and the most true, because ultimately it is about sin, right? And it's a sin problem. And when you commit sin against God, you ultimately end up committing sin against either yourself or those around you. In this case, it's all three. And so I don't know if there's any other way to get around it. By the way, people, I am reading your comments, and as you're writing these comments, I'm actually starring the ones I want to get back to. So when we get to the end of the show, I'm going to go through the ones that are starred that aren't just that are ones that are just like hi, thank you, whatever. The ones that actually are saying something, and we'll cover those at the end. But I am reading them and starring them because I can't talk to them while we're actually doing this, but we will get to those. So I appreciate all the comments as well. So offense God. Let me read what it says here. And I'll get your opinion on this, Kyra. It says, abortion offends God. Abortion is never a mere personal choice, but a grave offense against God and his creation. The anti-abortion struggle has always been a religious battle, and foremost in its ranks have been Christians across the country. This is because Bible teaching on abortion is clear and unequivocal. abortion is murder. I saw you jump off there. Did you catch all that?
Yeah, I grabbed my Bible real quick because I wanted to share a Bible verse.
Okay, are you ready? I can go. I can do a clip here if you're ready. You want to do a clip first, or are you ready to go now?
It's Jeremiah 1:5, so I can get to it real quick if you want to say something.
No, I was gonna say if you're not ready, I can go put up a quick clip here. Let me just you do that. I'll play this clip right here. It's interesting. It's about a minute long, so you got a minute to get your stuff together. So this is a really interesting one that I thought was pretty cool, and shows how naive people on the left are about what's going on with abortion. So it's about a minute long.
We would, I think all of us would disagree that it isn't a fully fledged human with a belief system and with a morality.
So you disagree with all biological science then?
But the consciousness of like...
So what if someone's in a coma? Can I stab them while they're in the coma?
Again, that would be up to the family to determine.
Can I stab them in the coma? You've been asked this about 10 times and you can't respond to it. Can I stab them?
Who is reaching inside and stabbing a baby? What is that?
Oh my goodness. Are you serious?
Do you want to see a video of it?
That's how abortion is done.
That's actually how it's done. It's done by crushing the skull, pulling the legs off, pulling the arms off. This is the issue. Can I just say this to you with respect?
One of these babies had its head crushed in the womb.
Yeah.
Zygotes, they aren't.
Why are you using that terminology? When the sperm and the egg meet, it's not sperm and egg for 9 months as you tried to suggest. When the sperm and the egg meet, it's a unique human being from the moment of conception.
All right, looks like we lost Kyra there. I should have got her to do her Bible verse before she left. So that clip there is a clip essentially of again LSU University, Apologia Ministries. Jeff Durbin is on the street. He does a street preacher, and he has a lot of apologetics. And essentially, what he's saying in that clip, when the guy couldn't even believe the fact that people stab babies inside the womb, because that's what Jeff was trying to say. He said, "Can I stab them if they're in a coma?" And he did that purposely because he knew that was the next thing. And so it wasn't been just about killing them. It would have been about actually stabbing them, which is the same thing that happens inside the womb. So we have Kyra back here, and let's bring her on. Let her share with us what she has.
Hi, I'm sorry. I don't know why I left. All of a sudden, like, I look up at my phone and it's like, you left the studio. So I don't know what happened.
Streaming's crazy.
So basically it says, so it's Jeremiah 4:5. It's Jeremiah 1:4-5, and it says, "The Lord gave me this message. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet to the nations." And then it also says, like, in this like little notes thing about abortion, it says, "While Jeremiah was still an unborn child, a powerful relationship began between him and God. God knew him as a person and set him apart for a special job." Over the centuries, the book of Jeremiah has had a profound impact on people all around the world. What if Jeremiah had been aborted by his parents and had never been given the opportunity to minister to the people of his day and to inspire millions through the centuries?
Yeah, that's Jeremiah said, right?
Jeremiah 1:4-5. Yeah.
And I know the one I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with that verse. I didn't realize that was Jeremiah. I used the one from, I guess, the Psalms, where David talks about he was known before the beginning of time, I believe. I don't have the reference, but it's pretty clear that human life is not just at conception. It's actually even before that. That God knew us before. It's a mystery, right? Because God's eternal, but it's not something we take for granted, right? Or it's a very precious thing. I guess that's the point. What are your thoughts on that verse? What does that make you, when you read that verse, what does it make you feel when you read that?
Well, as Christians, we believe in life and putting life first and protecting life. And for me, as a Christian, when I read that verse, it means that God has formed a connection with you while you are inside of the mother's womb. And God has formed a connection with you, like, even before you were even before you were outside of the womb, God knew you and he had a relationship with you. So he also says, it's like, he formed us in the womb. He created us in his image. So before we were born, he set us apart and appointed us as not just his children, but as his disciples, as people who go out and who preach his word. So when I read that verse, that is basically what sticks out to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And I think the whole thing about that is life. I mean, because it comes down to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, but mostly the Declaration that we are endowed by our Creator for unalienable rights. And among these are life, right? I mean, that's the first thing. And so that's the argument. I tell people that the same argument for the the antebellum period for slavery is the same argument for pro-life. Sorry, for pro-choice today. You follow that it wasn't a life then, and it's not a life now. So therefore, since it's not a human, we can do what we want. We can put them into servitude, or we can kill it. And that's what I did here on an actual Facebook post. I basically said the same thing, that these people here on the left, when all this stuff was going on with the Confederate statues and so forth, they were tearing down Confederate statues. They were judging the Confederacy or having slaves or whatever. And some people, they were tearing down people who actually were abolitionists. They didn't even know because they were idiots. But they're going to condemn people at a time when they are viewed slaves the same way that they view abortion, and therefore they are in no place morally to judge them because of their state of their own actions and attitudes now. So I find that level of hypocrisy very, very compelling, and no one really even connects the dots on that. So let's go through some comments here. I'm going to go through some favorites here that were starred. Let's start here. President Ford was pro-life and First Lady Ford was pro-choice. Well, that must have been a really fun household. And of course, we had Jerry with $10. Thank you so much for that. And Epstein's goes for $10. Thank you for that. And Pedro, I can tell Pedro is a political wonk. He likes the political aspect. And you're right. The comments you're saying about the midterms and their positioning, I find it very compelling what you said there. And I really appreciate that. Good news websites are good to get your spirits up. And thank you for sharing that story. Yes, my adoption story. I didn't tell that very much when I was younger. I was kind of embarrassed that I was adopted. I didn't tell anybody. I'm just now recently making that known. Well, now everybody knows now. So, but it's just one thing. I just felt like, I'm different from somebody else. But now I realize that I'm actually set apart, actually special. And you probably feel the same way too. The fact that you are here and your parents did not give up on you as well, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, and he says here about Sanger. Yep. You mentioned that as well. And one more thing here. Autism Speaks is funding scientific research on detecting autism. Wow. Had you heard that, Kyra?
Yeah, I have actually.
Wow. That's horrible.
Same with people in general who have like birth defects or who have Down syndrome. Like people like to use that as an excuse to encourage. Abortion should never be encouraged or bragged about. You shouldn't even go out and get an abortion, in my opinion. But they encourage parents who are going to have a baby with Down syndrome to go get an abortion because that child's going to have a hard life, which I think is just really just upsetting. And yeah, like I literally just found that Bible verse, Psalm 139:13. Oh,
yeah.
I love that Bible verse. It says, "You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed."
Wow. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I thought the Jeremiah one, I thought that was actually with Psalms, but no, both of those are really good verses. And yeah. So this is probably our most important live stream, in my opinion. I think the one we did on Israel was pretty important too, but this one I think it's just to me, it's just so personal to me. So let me see what else we have here. GOP needs to stop trying to get the black votes in the inner cities. They should black girls. Well, you know what the thing about it is that the black population has been stagnant for the past 50 years. And you look at that 61% of deaths, and that's ridiculous. That's absolutely horrendous. So let me go through some of my clips here. You want to go through some of your clips, Kyra? they're just clips. Let's just go through. Let's go through them real quick. These are Kyra's top 6, and actually watch the whole video because that she actually explains it. And if you want to comment on either one, that's fine. But I'll go through them one at a time here. They're real short. And what she's doing here in these clips is she's using the voice of an insane leftist. So let's just start with the first one here.
The first argument that we will be debunking is, you can't be against abortion unless you're willing to adopt unwanted babies. The second argument is, no uterus, no opinion. The third argument is that a woman cannot be forced to reproduce. The fourth argument to debunk is that pro-lifers want to control women's bodies. The sixth argument to debunk is that the pro-life movement is just a bunch of men bossing women around.
Let's talk about that one right there because that was pretty interesting. What you want to just kind of elaborate a little bit more on that particular one?
Yeah, so I heard that argument a little bit. I was talking to some pro-choicers, and they told me, like on that virtual march that I was at, where my friend FaceTimed me and I talked to pro-choicers, they asked me, they were like, oh, well, pro-lifers are just full of men trying to tell women, like, what to do. And I'm like, I don't mind if men tell me what to do, okay? I love men. Tell me what to do. Boss me around. I don't care. But the pro-life movement is actually made up with a lot of women. Some of the biggest pro-life organizations in America are run by women. The president of Students for Life is Kristen Hawkins, and then the founder of Live Action, who I'm an ambassador for, is Lila Rose. So, and also if you go to March for Life, which is like, I want to go to March for Life very badly someday. A lot of the people who go to those events are women. All of the women that I saw at the pro-choice march, who were protesting on behalf of the pro-life movement, were women. A lot of them were women. So I think that's a kind of hypocritical thing to say. And also it's like, I don't mind if men boss me around. Go ahead and boss me around. I don't care. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. I mean, and I think saying something like that nowadays, it's just so anti-cultural. I mean, and you weren't really saying just any old dude. You're just saying basically if a person's saying something that is good and righteous and so forth, then by all means. And I think people get this whole thing about submission as being some kind of bad thing, but you only need to submit if it's coming from a godly place. I submit to the Lord. My wife submits to me, but if I'm not submitting to the Lord, then I'm not sure she has to submit to me, right? I mean, because I'm in charge to follow what Christ his example is. And then that's a huge responsibility. And then she would come and submit on that premise because I'm not going to do anything to her that Christ wouldn't want me to do, So it's not a bad thing. I think people get that whole thing mixed up big time.
Yeah.
So, cool. So let's go through some of these. Black birth rate is 1.8, so they'll shrink by 10% in the next 2 years. Birth rate is 20 years. There's a whole thing right now, interestingly enough, that the left, that their birth rate is really shrinking, and that the conservatives are actually growing. We're having babies, we're doing stuff like that, where we want bigger families, and we're not aborting our kids. And so the thought is in the next 30 years, it's going to be a conservative country, but you can never really project that because by the time they get to college, they'll still flip anyway. So it won't really matter. Yeah, and Roe versus Wade was passed by all men. And not to mention Dred Scott, which is the thing about slavery, which basically said that same thing. That Dred Scott case came out in the 1850s, I believe. That was basically saying that Black people are not human, so therefore they can be a property and they can be held, they can be sent back to where they came from, to their masters, because they're not really human. And that was mostly done by Democrats, all men, but they were all, mostly 3 of those guys were Democrats appointed by Andrew Jackson. So a big, basically the founder of the party. And so it's just, to me, the whole thing, this whole historical thing about abortion and slavery is so hand in hand, and people just don't see it. So
Exactly. And I don't know if you know this, maybe I have the wrong thing, but I guess it's like predictably 20% of the population has been wiped out by abortion in America or worldwide. I don't know which one, but I saw that statistic somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong about the statistic, I don't know, but I saw that and I was like, wow.
that's probably right. So I'm running out of content to go on, so I'm going to go on this last clip here on Apologia, and it kind of ties into what you just said there and what I just said. So let's go over this clip here. It's about 45 seconds.
Right. Cannot enforce our religious beliefs on other people.
So what if someone says they want to enslave a black person? Are they allowed to do that?
No.
Who says?
What are you talking about?
Who stopped it?
It's logical fallacies. It's logical
Who
fallacies.
stopped the enslavement? Christian abolitionists, based upon the law word of
That
God.
doesn't mean that. Okay, so you're saying that
It wasn't
only-
atheists.
Wait, so you're saying
Let me
that
say,
only Christians are
atheists
anti-slavery?
borrow from the Christian worldview to be opposed to slavery. But let me tell you, if you believe your ancestors are bacteria, you have no justifiable ultimate objection to slavery because your ancestors are fish. Correct?
Okay. I don't know how close I need to
There's where the legs fall off, ladies and gentlemen. Right.
Cannot
Oh, wow. That's good. Okay, well, I'm out of material. I've gone through all my stuff. I mean, I could go on. We could ramble forever, but I covered what I wanted to cover. And my point on this was to kind of give a high level within an hour or so of this whole thing. And let's kind of bring it back to where it came from. This whole Dobbs versus Jackson case, which is the whole thing that's bringing this up, which is the whole thing of reason why Roe v. Wade could be in jeopardy. And by the way, you did post something, Kyra. I'm going to put that up on here. I thought it was kind of cool. You posted that. Looks like they're trying to get rid. I thought that was
Yeah. I might post that on my, I don't know, should I post that on my Instagram story? I might.
Yeah, well, they destroyed my Instagram. It's gone. They deleted it.
What?
They deleted it, and I don't know why. I mean, I think because I was growing kind of fast there, and I don't know. They said it was some sexual thing that I was posting, but I mean, I'm just forwarding posts that are already out there, and none of it had anything to do with that. You know, none of it was just basically retweets and Instagrams, whatever. But I'll build it back up again. I really don't. It made me upset, but at the same time, I'm like, I guess I'm doing something right, I guess. So yeah, Instagram is interesting.
Yeah, you have to be kind of careful with what you post on there.
Yep. So, okay, well, cool. So I think we got it all. Oh, I'll show one more thing here. This is my wife sent this to me last clip. This is from North Carolina. She took this picture today. This is baby formula.
Wow.
So I guess there's some there, I guess.
Wow.
But not a lot, right? I mean, so anyway, that's a whole nother subject altogether. They get you in the womb, they get you after you get out of the womb, they'll starve you to death. So
Yep.
So okay, well, so let me go through more of these comments and then I'll let you get the last word. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Birth rates are very recent. Yeah. And then we have here, this is my, where are you getting your data from? I like to know that because I like to look at it myself. Not that I don't believe you. I totally believe you, but I want to get it for myself so I can actually use it for some of my stuff. Because I'll probably never be able to find that data. It's hard to find some stuff on. I mean, right now, even on Google, it's hard to find stuff. So I use DuckDuckGo, but then they went into another format. So now I use Quant, which is giving me problems now. So it's hard to find a good search engine these days. Dre says, observing the behavior of those at pro-choice protests is crazy. There's no rationale whatsoever. It's hormones with next to zero life experience screaming like banshees. I agree with that, 100%. And if you watch that whole video clip from Apologia, it goes on for 30 minutes. They're out of control. And they're the sane ones. And there's even people who are even worse than that who aren't. Check out Ben Shapiro picking out pro-choice arguments. Oh yeah. What's your thoughts on Ben Shapiro, Kyra?
He's okay. I'm not a big Ben Shapiro girl.
My wife Yeah, my wife went to go see him a couple weeks ago. I can take or leave him, but he is when he's on his points, he's sharp. I just think he's just too middle of the road. I think he's just too like, if it's not.
I think he's too moderate, and I don't like this. I hope this doesn't sound anti-Semitic, but I really don't like how I think he's a little too pro-Israel, and I wish he would try to put America first at least a little bit more than he does with Israel. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, we talked about that, about how that we as people in America, we live here. So I want to put where I live first. My house is where I put first, right? Then everything else is outside of that. I'm not going to let anyone come in my house and destroy my house. So I am Kyle's house first, right? And I think that's how we should be with our country. Protecting our borders in particular. And I don't see a lot of conservatives taking that approach.
Yeah, I think he shows a little too much for Israel, and it's just kind of annoying. Like, I also saw some tweets that he made about Israel, and I'm just like, dude, first of all, you're an American. You should put America first, not just talk about Israel all the time on your show. You know what I mean? It's just a little annoying. It's I don't get why putting America first is anti-Semitic. According to some conservatives, it's anti-Semitic, and I don't get it. Like, I'm an America First nationalist and patriot, 100%. The other countries, I care about America. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he's a little too moderate for me as well.
I haven't heard the statement that if you're pro America or America First, that you're anti-Semitic. Wow.
Oh yeah. Turning Point USA, actually, they had a meeting recently. They did something. I don't know what it was, but this lady was talking during a conference or an event or something. And she was like, if you are pro-America, you are inherently pro-Israel. It was so cringy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah, man, I should have clarified. I wasn't. Yeah, your statement was absolutely spot on, because if you get Ben Shapiro on a topic, he's going to kill it, right? I just segued into him as a person. So no, it was not what you said. What you said was absolutely 100%, because he's, on topically speaking, he's excellent. But I was just asking her opinion on that, guy. I know how she feels about him. So so good.
Ben
man.
Shapiro is an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I don't like his voice, man. I mean, come on, dude. Can you get some bass in your voice?
Yeah.
But anyway, but I wouldn't say that to Mike Tyson either, though. So Mike Tyson doesn't have any bass in his voice. So
yeah.
So I guess I'm a hypocrite. Okay, we're digressing here. Okay, so I think we're pretty good here. Do you want to say anything else on what we may have missed, or anything else you want to close out, or anything you want to talk about?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. We'll let people know how they can get a hold of you. I put your updated links in the actual description on the YouTube version. So, but you want to just tell people how they can.
I'm on Truth Social now.
Are you really? Is that on the? I don't think I have that.
Probably not. I literally just got on it like a few weeks ago, I think, which is very exciting. Truth Social and Gab are way better than Getter. Okay, I love those two social media accounts.
I hate Getter.
Yeah, I hate Getter too. Getter is sketchy. I love Gab and I love Truth Social. So basically, you can follow me. Oh, and I'm back on Twitter, by the way. I am back on Twitter. This is. So
I saw
exciting.
that. I saw that. You're based Kyra. Is that it?
Yeah.
I laughed when I saw that.
That's my name on Twitter. So my Twitter is @BasedKyra, uppercase B, lowercase K. My Instagram is @RealKyraBolby. You can also follow me on Gab. My Gab is Kyra Bolby. My Parlor is Kyra Bolby. My Truth Social is Kyra Bolby. And you can also follow me on Facebook. My Facebook is Kyra Marion Carol Bolby. So those are all of my social media links. But make sure you follow me on Instagram, because I'm pretty active on there, and I love Instagram. So follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is @RealKyraBolby. And yeah,
Jerry, you should go check out our. We did a whole live stream on Israel. I mean, a whole live stream on it. So
Yeah,
no,
I have updated opinions on that now, though.
Do you really? Okay.
I do.
But now I'm
Very
with
updated.
yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's a sensitive subject. I don't want to people get the wrong impression. Maybe we can do another show on that. But yeah, maybe a Rumble, maybe.
Yeah, maybe on Rumble. I don't know if that would be a good idea because some of my opinions, people might think it's anti-Semitic. Some mainstream conservatives are a little weird. Okay, they think that like if you don't support Israel and if you don't call yourself a Zionist, you're like a crappy human being. So we would have to be careful.
It's a litmus test. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not a Zionist anymore because I found some stuff out about Zionism, but I was like, no, thank you, not anymore. And also, like, I just believe.
Yeah.
I believe in putting America first. So, yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about that because I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that. So, it's a crazy world, and I like to learn more and more, so I can have my opinions always change anyway. Hopefully, so.
Yeah, I think you should be allowed to criticize Israel as a conservative. For some reason, if you ask questions about Israel or criticize Israel, you're seen as anti-Semitic. So it's a little weird. It's a little strange. Yeah. But yeah, that's my opinion. I'm America first.
Well, I'll say this. Yeah. I'll say this real quickly. I mean, Zelenko, who is a scientist up in New York, I think he's Jewish, and he was criticizing. He's about as Jewish as you can get, but he was criticizing the leadership of Israel and separating them from the actual people and so forth. So, if he can talk critical about the leadership of Israel, then anybody can, because he's one of them. So, they're human beings, right? You know, and so like Jerry was saying, there is a spiritual component to that, which people are sensitive to. I get that.
Yeah, but like biblical Israel now is a lot different. Like Israel now in the present day is a lot more different than I would say biblical Israel in the past. You know?
Right.
So I think that's something that people need to keep in mind as well. Like I'm not saying this, like I'm not trying to sound anti-Semitic. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying like I believe in supporting my own country first and foremost above other foreign nations, if that makes sense.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm with you. 100%. Cool. All right. And okay, so I'll leave it here, and this may trigger you, but that's fine. Because that's really the big question. It's the Church of Israel, and that's a big deal. I mean, like we don't have time to get into that, but that's really the big argument there. So
yeah, I don't really agree with that, but
yeah, that's a big opinion. That's a big depending on which dispensation you come from, But again, that's a whole thing. I ain't touching that. So yeah. So that being said, Kyra, thank you so much for coming on here and doing this again. We've been on here for about an hour and a half almost. And thank everyone for coming. I'm gonna just go through quickly here who actually was on. If I can get to everybody, Man and a Half, Jerry, as always, Pedro. Your comments are amazing. Camera stage videos. Stephen Wallace came in on early on. Who else do we have? Jerry, I said that already. I think that's about mostly all we had. I'm sorry, Stephen Wallace. Yep, I said that already. Mark's on here. Hold on, let me get back to him real quick. Sorry. Okay, he's a little quiet today, but hey, Mark. So anyway, all right, so cool. So everyone, I'm going to jump off here, and I want to thank so much everyone for coming on. Again, Kyra, thank you. And with that being said, if you like what we do here on the Conservative Take, like and subscribe. Go over to Kyra's live, her channel. Check her out and subscribe to her channel. And we will check everybody else in our next video. See ya.